Well, great news there for Kenya in the athletics field. And of course, we also have the Rotterdam Marathon that is currently going on. We do expect Kenya to bag quite a few medals in that marathon as well. Now to politics, where top NASA leaders are today expected to land in the coast for a crucial retreat in which they're expected to deliberate and agree on who will become the presidential flag bearer. The meeting is very crucial as the country looks upon the opposition to pick a candidate who will face President Uhuru Kenyatta in the August elections. Let's now speak to our political reporter Murimi Mwangi on this issue. Murimi, do we expect to get a name at the end of this retreat?
Good afternoon once again, Michelle. Well, it is an interesting balancing act for the four core principles as they begin these deliberations within that retreat. Remember, the technical committee has completed their work, as well as the coordinating committee of the 12 members with the representation of 3 from each of the 4 founding parties. And the decision now that will be made is upon the 4 core principles to either own the decision that has or could have been made by the 2 committees, or to deliberate further and possibly even come up with a lineup that is different from any that may have been crafted by the other 2 teams. Well, initially there were reports that the core principles would be meeting for up to 4 days, but speaking to senior officials within the opposition, they have said that there's so much for the core principles to discuss, and the discussions might go beyond that particular time that had been initially set for these discussions with regard to not only the lineup on the presidential candidate, the running mate, and the position to be handed to the other 2 core principles, but also the formula for sharing out key government positions, particularly the cabinet slots, should the National Super Alliance clinch the presidency come the August 8th general election. Remember, initially there were reports that the technical committee had strongly advised for a candidature of former Prime Minister Raila Odinga with Kalonzo Musyoka as the running mate, and the other 2 core principles to be given separate positions. One position that had been touted as possible to be introduced currently is the position of Chief Minister. You might say that's an equivalent of Prime Minister's position, but the only difference here is that the Chief Minister will be a designated minister from the cabinet who can now report on executive business to Parliament, as well as defend government position within Parliament. Remember, currently the CSs simply appear before parliamentary committees. They have not been appearing before the floor of Parliament. And in particular, that role of defending the government within Parliament seemingly has been left to the position of the majority leader within the National Assembly. But of course, these are deliberations that will be ongoing among the 4 core principles. Remember, even after the 4 leaders are done with that particular meeting, they will still have to retreat back to their kitchen cabinets and discuss what is on the table for each of the parties to discuss further and see if they will adopt that or if there ought to be more deliberations in the future. Michelle.
And Murimi, just before I let you go, not very long ago, there was a leaked report by the National Coordinating Committee of NASA that suggested, and it caused a lot of controversy actually, and there was word that it had suggested the 2013 lineup of a Raila-Kalonzo duo. Other principals, of course, had dismissed this report, but is there any truth to that?
Well, Michelle, you might say from opposition leaders that I have been able to speak to, they insist that the final decision on what each party will be handed finally has to be owned by the 4 core principles. And that's possibly why that report may have caused so much controversy within the opposition. But of course, the technical committee has been giving recommendations on what they believe is the winning formula for the opposition. And partly one of the arguments of key members that have fronted a candidature of Raila Odinga on the presidential ticket has been that he might be able to eat into perceived Jubilee strongholds and deny the ruling coalition the crucial 50+1 vote. Remember, in 2013, they predominantly relied upon the support of their key backyards, that in the Mount Kenya, as well as the Rift Valley, and the argument of those that have been fronting that idea argue that the former Prime Minister of the 4 core principles has the best opportunity to do that. But of course, that has been refuted by the core principles, including Kalonzo Musyoka, who insists that he is the best bet for NASA and that he is one candidate that can earn votes even from outside what has been presumed to be the stronghold of his Wiper party. Michelle.
All right, we will be keeping an eye on how that will unfold. Murimi Mwangi there joining us from our city centre studios. Now, Kenyan Catholic faithfuls this morning joined the rest of the world in marking Palm Sunday. The day is marked by faithful going on a procession to their churches. Let's now link up with Raquel Mwigai for details about this special day for Catholics. But before we do that, let's also cross over live to the Vatican. We have Pope Francis there, who is leading a mass.